Hello to everybody out there using Outreach for prospecting and using HubSpot for the rest of your sales process. So lots of people like using Outreach and similar tools for their prospecting until they create opportunities and then they move things into HubSpot. So how do we go about doing this with the limits in the syncing between HubSpot and Outreach, and especially when it comes to our reporting, right? Because that's where we want to make sure that in HubSpot we can do forecasting and have other reporting. And since activities don't go back and forth between HubSpot and Outreach, we have to find another solution, right? So if we look at the integration, we do have a two-way sync, and we do get owners, activities and timelines, calls, conversations. We do not get, my apologies, owners, activities and timelines, calls, conversations, tasks, and sequences, right? So when we go down here, we have default field mappings that come through for companies, contacts, and deals. But let's say that in Outreach, you're not creating the opportunities. You're actually doing that in HubSpot. This is what we're dealing with right now, is creating the opportunities in HubSpot, being able to forecast pipeline, and then being able to report on call activity in HubSpot or in these stages that your prospects are going through, right? Because Outreach has the ability for prospects to go through stages, which is different than opportunity stages, right? It's a prospecting stage. So how do we mimic this and how do we mirror it in HubSpot? Okay, so for the example I'm going to use, you would need Operations Hub because you're going to need to be able to create the custom mapping, okay? So what I did is I created a property for call status, and what I did with my call status property is I made it a single line text property, because since these two properties are not the same, the only way to bring this in is to actually do a single line text property. So what we're doing here is whenever a stage is updated, this is going to push over to HubSpot, right? So what we're going to achieve by this is a couple of things. Number one is the stages for prospects are going to align with call statuses in HubSpot. So what can we do with that? We can pull lists. We can report on it. We can report on it by rep. We can do all sorts of things in HubSpot so we can keep all of our dashboards there. The other thing we're going to be able to do is based on the stage and what the call status for Outreach is in our HubSpot, we're going to create deals and move them through a pipeline. So we can set this up like maybe the reason we don't like mirror this is because the prospecting stages don't really work in the same way that deal stages do, right? To be able to forecast. So what we want to do is choose our call stages that actually make sense, or our prospecting stages that make sense for a deal pipeline. That way we can forecast our prospecting expectations based on how we're moving people through, based on what's happened historically, right? So, and we can, as you know, forecast per rep or forecast overall. So what we did first is we created this property. So when we edit this, if we just take a look at it, we found stage in Outreach, which is a prospect stage, and then we found the custom property that we made, okay? So we're going to go ahead and, so we've got that one. This one is all set up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a look at the creating a deal from Outreach, right? So we created a pipeline that's going to do this. So what we're going to start with, because the first stage in this instance is approaching. So when somebody's in approaching, this is when we're going to create a deal in the proper pipeline. Similarly, what we can do is when it reaches when call status and Outreach is something else, we can move that to another stage of the pipeline. So what we're doing here is we're capturing all the different call statuses, and we're going to do that. We're going to have active lists, right? So the next thing that we do is we go over and we create active lists based on the call status, because that's going to add and remove people, So if we do that, then we're going to be able to pull those lists, right? So we're going to be able to go over here and go to lists, and this is my demo account, so there are all sorts of lists in here, but we're going to be able to say Outreach list approaching, right? So this is an active list. We're going to go to next. We're going to add a filter. We're going to have a contact property, and we're going to have call status and Outreach. And the value is approaching. And these we can do equal to because this is going to come over, right? So we're going to go ahead and say approaching. All right, so now we have that. And there we go. We can save this list. Now we can pull these lists. We can create reports to report on the number of people who are in different stages. We can forecast our pipeline, and that's going to give us a lot more functionality in HubSpot and better reporting in HubSpot and visibility in HubSpot based on what's happening in Outreach. So again, this is going to require Sales Hub Pro and Operations Hub Pro at a minimum in order to accomplish this. So if you have any questions, let me know, and hopefully that can help you to enhance your Outreach to HubSpot connection.